So with our digital health platform, we help patients navigate the healthcare system. For example, right now it's late in the evening. Most clinics, pharmacies are probably going to be closed. What's open right now? Where's the nearest open pharmacy? So with our website and app, you can easily find that. If you want to find the nearest healthcare professional who speaks your language, for example, we partner with public health for newcomers, for Syrian refugees. You can easily find the nearest Arabic-speaking doctor, pharmacist, etc. It's all about leveraging data. So with our platform, we also have a free app for iPhone, Android, as well as BlackBerry. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about, just a few minutes, about what our platform does, but then I'm going to go into our journey and what brought us to our current point, and also what struggles we experienced, what opportunities we see, and what advice I have for you. And so our journey began about 4 years ago, and that was when I was halfway through my PhD. My PhD was in medical biophysics. I was doing research related to drug discovery, and I realized, the timelines for success with that is literally decades. Yet the opportunity with leveraging technology and building a mobile app can be literally months, especially if you want to test and iterate through that. And so I was attending a lot of meetups like this one here. And I spoke to other people, like-minded people that were interested in innovating in the space. And I met a couple other co-founders who could build, who knew how to code. And so I came in with a bit of an idea. They came in with a coding background. And we worked together to build this platform. We started off with just the website, added the apps. And now we've also added new functionality. So the new functionality that we have is not just navigating, finding out what's available. If you want to book an appointment with your family doctor, couple clicks, it's there, and it's in their schedule right away. It's being used by walk-in clinics and rostered family doctors. The other thing that we recently launched was booking of flu shot appointments at pharmacies. So in 25 different cities in Ontario, out in Nova Scotia, and out in Alberta, if you want to book a flu shot with your pharmacist or other services provided by those pharmacies, you can just couple clicks within our app and website make that happen. The nearest pharmacy that you can book at right now is actually just outside this building, Liberty Market Pharmacy. So if you don't yet have your flu shot, I encourage you to book an appointment with them or book an appointment with the other pharmacy that is probably near your place. Same thing with the clinics. We started off with just booking of clinic appointments, but then we took it one step further. We don't like waiting in waiting rooms, right? And so we built a virtual waiting room where the nearest clinic that's using it is actually in Chinatown. And that's where you can see wait times before you get there. From our app, from the website, enter the virtual waiting room. Or even if you walk in the door, use the kiosk, enter the virtual waiting room, go grab coffee next door, and be notified when it's almost your turn. And we've designed it not just with the focus on the patient experience, but the focus on the clinicians themselves, making sure that it improves their operational efficiencies and whatever needs it fills. So in many cases, it's all about efficiency. It's all about improving their processes, and that's great. But the other thing for some of those pharmacies is driving traffic in their door. They get paid for every flu shot that they give. They're offering a lot of other services, and they'll, in the near future, be offering even more services, like clinics. And so it's providing infrastructure to help support that, to support their new practices as it changes. And we're going to be doing a lot more in the pharmacy space. We'll be launching a lot of new features in the near future, but this is just an example of what we've been building out over the past few years. Yet the approach that we took from meeting with co-founders at a meetup to now implementing services throughout the country, it has been testing the idea, bouncing it off other innovators, other people in the space, taking it to other healthcare professionals, to find out, does this fill their needs? Does this fill their current needs? Does this improve their processes? And also taking it to policymakers. Because we have a public healthcare system. There's the policy, there's the funding models, there's all these other components that you have to take into consideration. And so it's getting feedback from all those different stakeholders that help us figure out, so how do we design, what do we do next, and also navigate the system. So if you go to the next slide. And so I'm shifting now the talk from what we do to help patients navigate the healthcare system to some advice to help you as potentially healthcare innovators navigate the healthcare system. So if you go to the next slide. So there are tons of challenges that you'd face as a healthcare innovator, especially in Canada. The biggest challenge is around capital. Access to capital in Canada is very difficult. There are grants available. There's public funds available, SHRED, a lot of grants, yet the key challenge when obtaining those grants is tied to risk, right? Same with private capital. And angel investors, VCs, et cetera, it's quite different in Canada compared to the US around the tolerance around risk, especially in healthcare, especially if you're an innovator, you're coming out with a service or a technology that hasn't been fully validated, or that there's some uncertainty. The other challenge around investment and access to capital in Canada is that there are literally thousands of people with ideas looking for funds, yet, so it's pretty much a huge marketplace that those with capital and funds could pick from. And so if you have an idea, you need to have a roadmap so you can work through the various challenges to move it forward far enough so you can access capital. So that's one thing. And the other thing around that too is just south of the border, a short drive away, there are companies with a lot like deeper pockets in terms of the funds that they can raise, the money that they can have, and they're potentially competitors when they come to Canadian market. One opportunity around that is our healthcare system is quite different from that south of the border. And so if you design for this healthcare system and work around the barriers that can exist for purely private healthcare system, it is an opportunity for you. And that's one that we've focused on in how we design our platform and moved our business forward. So that's one challenge. And don't worry, this is not just challenges. I'll tell you some solutions after and opportunities. But the next challenge in Canada is around culture. Culture, one is the risk tolerance of investors, but the other is the risk tolerance in healthcare of providers. One thing we learned was that promises were made back in the 90s, even last year, a couple years ago, by some of the vendors that offer technology to healthcare providers. They make promises that they don't deliver on, and that burns things. That results in clinicians being uncertain about whether or not you'll be able to deliver what you promise and hope to deliver, right? And so that has shifted a little bit, which is good. There are some incentives encouraging innovation in healthcare, which is great, but it's something to just be aware of just the risk tolerance, specifically in healthcare. There's a lot of other risks around privacy. So someone mentioned earlier around personal health information. And the risk is, I guess, the concern around that is not necessarily the challenge of it, it's just the uncertainty of it. Is the fear of, I don't know this very well, I'm a clinician, I know what I do very well, and this is out of scope. I don't want to handle it because it's too dangerous, right? And so it's kind of going to those conversations with the knowledge to share, to make them comfortable, and navigating that. Yeah, so, and then the last piece is procurement, right? You have money, you build it out, you have some validation, you position it well in terms of messaging to get people to use it, yet there might be very, very difficult procurement processes, especially if you're working with provincial agencies, governments, or other publicly funded organizations. And there are ways around that too, in terms of, not necessarily ways around it, but there are ways to work through that. The thing is that there are all these barriers you have to be aware of as you want to take your innovation and move it forward. But they're not just these obstacles, and it's changing. And so if you go to next slide, there are tons of opportunity. And so I list culture here as well, because the culture is changing. There's a better appetite. One key aspect of the culture being changed is around patient-centered, a focus on that, especially from the policy perspective. In the policy sphere, there are a lot of people who have great intentions. They want to move things forward. They want things to innovate. They want to support innovators like us. Yet it takes time. Second is opportunities like open data. There will be repositories in the near future that will allow you to access the data that's necessary, whether it's even patient data from the healthcare system, so that you can incorporate it in your innovations. The second is integration. The healthcare system has been very siloed before. The main silo that I see right now is technology silos. EMRs, EHRs, and the like might not necessarily have open APIs, or there are barriers to integrating with that, but that is changing. And the last is, and I mentioned here innovative technology because it's very broad, because there's so many other people working on interesting things, and it's finding partnerships and abilities to work together so that you can incorporate whatever they're building, whether it's a wearable, whether it's a device, whether it's software, whether it's a platform, to help it align with your own business needs and your innovation to move it forward. Next slide. And so I'm just going to end with a call to action, and that's that if you compare Canada and the Canadian healthcare system to other countries in the world, we are far behind in terms of what's being used elsewhere. Don't design for yesterday or today. Look, because there's such a big gap, try to leapfrog. Look to see what's being done internationally, and also look at what is the future state of the healthcare system 10 years from now, and design towards that. Recognize what the current needs are and incorporate that in terms of getting adoption, but also move it forward so that it can be a successful, service that is being used a decade from now or even longer. So I'm just going to end with that. Thanks.
Are there any questions for Ryan? Yep.
Does your platform have an open API?
Pardon? So it's designed, it's not fully open where we provide data about the APIs, but there are APIs available for partnerships, and it's designed also for white labeling, and we do a lot of that. Yeah. And so if anyone is interested in accessing our data or looking at opportunities to partner or to integrate our system with what you're working on, it's designed specifically for that. So yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
You say design for tomorrow. Where do you look?
Where do I look?
Yeah.
So when I design for tomorrow, what I do is I look to see what's the current state of practices, where is it shifting towards? So let's say 5-8 years from now. An example being in the pharmacy space, right? The pharmacy practice is going to be changing dramatically over the next 5 or so years, even longer. So I'm aiming for that, but I'm also looking at what are the milestones in between so that there can be adoption towards that, but also building out that end goal or even beyond. Yeah. Yeah.
So Ryan, you framed the fact that the US and Canada having very different healthcare systems as being an opportunity for Canadian companies to sort of thrive. But what does that mean for growth?
And that's all about perspective too. Like when you plan things out, you need to make the decision, are you building something for the US market? Or are you building something for the Canadian market or international markets, right? And there are opportunities, I'm trying to think of examples, but I can't think of any right now. But there are opportunities where there are major companies in the US, like EHRs as an example. It's just way too expensive for some of the EHRs to be implemented in Canada, just because of their pricing models. And it's more like a business strategy conversation, and whether or not it's worth their effort to come here. And in terms of growth, depending on what exactly it is that you're building or offering, like the Canadian market might have a significant size to it, or even other systems that have a similar healthcare system as Canada too.
Thank you so much, Ryan.